Real talk. You're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner. Everything's going great. The food is amazing. Everyone's catching up. And then your dad, or your uncle, or your grandfather clears his throat. And you already know. You already know what's coming. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. And then comes that laugh. That deep, self-satisfied laugh that only he finds funny. Everyone else is groaning, rolling their eyes, maybe throwing a napkin across the table. But he's living his best life. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. Somewhere deep down, you kind of loved it too. So today we're going to answer a question that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. Why do boomers absolutely love dad jokes? Not just tell them, but truly, deeply, enthusiastically love them like it's their life mission. We're talking familiarity, low risk, social bonding, the whole psychology behind it. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to look at your dad's terrible puns in a completely different way. Let's get into it. First, let me ask you something. When was the last time a dad joke actually made you smile? Even just a little bit? Even if you tried really hard not to? Because I'm willing to bet it happened more recently than you think. See, we have this habit of dismissing dad jokes as just bad humor, corny, outdated. The kind of jokes that belong in a popsicle wrapper from 1987. But that's exactly the surface level reaction. And surface level is where most people stop thinking about it. If you actually dig deeper, you start to realize that dad jokes are a masterpiece of human psychology. They are carefully, even if accidentally, engineered to do specific things to specific people in specific social situations. And nobody uses them more skillfully, more passionately, than the baby boomer generation. So let's start at the very beginning. What exactly is a dad joke? A dad joke is typically a short, simple, clean pun or wordplay joke. It's not edgy. It's not dark. It doesn't rely on shock value. It's the kind of joke where the humor, if you can even call it that, comes from how predictable and how obvious the punchline is. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. That's a dad joke. It's safe. It's simple. It makes you groan and grin at the exact same time. That simultaneous groan and grin reaction. Linguists and humor researchers actually have a name for it. They call it a groan-worthy response, and it's uniquely triggered by puns and wordplay. But here's what's interesting. The groan is not a sign that the joke failed. The groan is literally part of the joke working. The groaning is the laugh. The eye roll is the applause. Boomers figured this out long before any of us, and they've been using it like a social superpower ever since. Now let's talk about the boomer generation specifically, because this is where it gets really fascinating. Baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. They grew up in a very different America, and a very different world. There was no internet, no smartphones, no TikTok trends, no Netflix, no streaming. Entertainment was simple. Family was everything. And humor? Humor was clean, shared, and communal. These were people who grew up watching Bob Hope on TV, listening to Jack Benny on the radio, watching their own dads, the silent generation, crack clean, simple puns at the dinner table. Humor wasn't used to shock people or go viral. It was used to connect people. And that's the first big key here. Familiarity. Boomers love dad jokes because dad jokes feel like home. Think about it this way. When you hear a song from your childhood, first few notes of a song your mom used to play, something in your brain just relaxes. You feel safe. You feel warm. Even if the song isn't particularly amazing, the familiarity of it creates this emotional comfort that nothing else can replicate. Dad jokes work the same way for boomers. These jokes aren't just jokes to them. They're memory triggers. They're little time machines that take them back to their own childhoods, their own fathers, their own kitchen tables. Every corny pun is a tiny thread connecting them to something real and warm and permanent. And in a world that has changed dramatically around them, new technology every 6 months, social norms shifting, the whole world moving at a speed that feels overwhelming, that familiarity is genuinely comforting. The dad joke says, some things don't change, some things are still safe, still simple, still yours. And this brings us to the second reason, which I think is the most underrated one, low risk. Here's the deal. Humor is dangerous. genuinely risky in a social sense. Modern comedy, especially internet humor, walks on razor-thin lines. A joke can go wrong in 100 different ways. It can offend someone. It can land flat and make you look stupid. It can accidentally touch on something deeply personal. It can be misread, misunderstood, screenshot, and sent to the wrong person. Modern humor requires navigation. It requires reading the room in a sophisticated, fast-moving way. And for a lot of boomers, and honestly, for a lot of anyone, that's exhausting. Dad jokes eliminate all of that anxiety. The entire format of a dad joke signals, this is safe. This is for everyone. No one is the target. No one gets hurt. The worst thing that happens is a groan and an eye roll, and even that is a positive reaction in the dad joke world. Conversational equivalent of wearing a comfortable pair of shoes. You're not trying to impress anyone with dad jokes. You're not trying to be edgy or cool. You're just showing up. Warm. Predictable. Low stakes. And here's something fascinating. Research in psychology actually supports this. Studies on humor and anxiety show that people tend to gravitate toward humor styles that feel safe and controllable in stressful or uncertain situations. And boomers have been navigating a lot of uncertainty. Economic shifts, social changes, a pandemic, technology that feels like it reinvents itself every Tuesday. Dad jokes are the humor equivalent of a deep breath. They're low risk, low stress, and 100% reliable in delivering some kind of reaction, even if that reaction is bad. Speaking of reactions, let's talk about that groan for a second, because it's more important than you think. When someone groans at a dad joke, what are they actually doing? They're responding, they're engaging, they're participating in a tiny little social ritual that says, I heard you, I'm in this moment with you, I acknowledge what just happened. That's not nothing. That's actually really valuable. Those awkward silences at family gatherings. Those moments where nobody knows what to say and everyone's staring at their plates. Dad jokes kill those dead. One terrible pun, one inevitable groan, and suddenly the tension breaks. People laugh, even if they're laughing at how bad the joke was. Conversation starts, energy shifts. Boomers have lived long enough to understand the power of that. They've been at enough awkward family dinners, enough tense office parties, enough funerals where someone desperately needed to lighten the mood, to know that a well-timed groan-worthy pun can do something that no amount of sophisticated wit can always achieve. It breaks the ice and keeps it safe and makes people feel included all at once. That's actually hard to do. And dad jokes do it on autopilot. Now we arrive at the third and maybe the most beautiful reason: social bonding. This one genuinely moved me when I started researching it, so stay with me. There's a concept in anthropology and evolutionary psychology called grooming behavior. And no, not the haircut kind. In social animals, grooming is any behavior that exists primarily to strengthen social bonds. For primates, it's literally picking bugs off each other. For humans, it's small talk, gift-giving, inside jokes, and yes, shared humor. Dad jokes are a social bonding mechanism. When a boomer dad tells you a terrible pun and you groan, you're not just reacting to the joke. You're participating in a ritual. You're playing your part in a call and response that says, I see you. You see me. We are family. We are connected. Think about how many dad jokes become inside jokes in families. How a specific terrible pun becomes a thing that Grandpa says every single Christmas. And after years of groaning, the family starts expecting it, looking forward to it, because it's theirs. My cousin's family has this running thing where every time someone asks, how are you? Her dad says with a fork. And it's a terrible joke. It doesn't even make grammatical sense. But that family has been groaning at that joke for 20-something years. And at this point, if he didn't say it, it would feel like something was missing. It would feel wrong. That's not just a joke anymore. That's a family heirloom. That's a tradition. That's identity. And boomers, more than maybe any generation, understand the power of identity and continuity. They grew up in an era that valued tradition, family dinners, community gathering, multi-generational living. Dad jokes are one of the most portable, low-tech, instantly deployable ways to carry that tradition forward. They don't require Wi-Fi. They don't require a subscription. They don't expire. You can tell a dad joke at a kitchen table in 1975 and at a kitchen table in 2025, and it lands exactly the same way both times. That's kind of incredible when you think about it. Let's also talk about something that doesn't get enough credit: the generational transmission of humor. When a boomer dad tells his kid a dad joke and the kid groans, something is actually being passed down. A style of humor, a value system almost. It says, humor doesn't have to be dark to be funny. Laughter doesn't have to come at someone's expense. A pun is a perfectly valid reason to smile. And then, and this is the part that'll get you, that kid grows up, becomes a parent, and suddenly, inexplicably, finds themselves thinking, hey, why don't eggs tell jokes? They'd crack each other up, and they say it out loud. To their own kid, who groans, and the cycle continues. Dad jokes are literally self-replicating humor. They're the cultural equivalent of DNA. They pass from generation to generation, slightly mutated, carrying the same basic structure, serving the same emotional purpose. Boomers didn't just inherit dad jokes from their parents. They refined them, practiced them, built a whole identity around them. And now they tell them with this absolute unbothered confidence, this I know you're going to groan and I don't care energy. That is honestly kind of inspiring. There's something really freeing about being so committed to your own brand of humor that other people's eye rolls don't even register as negative feedback. Now, let's talk about why younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, are actually coming back around to dad jokes. Because here's the plot twist. Dad jokes are having a moment. And it's not ironic. It's genuine. You've seen it on the internet. The unexpectedly wholesome corners of Reddit. The TikTok accounts dedicated to clean, corny humor. The meme formats that are literally just wordplay puns with pictures of golden retrievers. The "Hi Hungry I'm Dad" meme that never ever dies no matter how many years pass. Younger generations, who have grown up in a media landscape of dark humor, irony, and relentless cynicism, are increasingly drawn to humor that's just kind. Humor that doesn't punch down. Humor that's warm and clean and safe. Sound familiar? That's literally what dad jokes are. There's a reason dad jokes YouTube channels have millions of subscribers. There's a reason dad joke books are bestsellers. There's a reason the absolute peak of internet humor for a solid year was just, I am speed, but also I love my family and I cooked dinner tonight. We are all secretly boomers about dad jokes. We've just been too embarrassed to admit it. And this leads to something I think is really worth sitting with for a second. We live in an era of very divided, very charged, very exhausting discourse. Social media has made humor into a political minefield. What's funny to one group is offensive to another. Comedy specials come with trigger warnings. Jokes get people fired. The stakes of humor, especially public humor, have never felt higher. And into all of that walks a guy in khaki shorts with his hands in his pockets and a gleam in his eye. Want to hear a joke about paper? Never mind, it's terrible. And for just 1 second, everyone in the room is united in their groan. It doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter what you believe. You all just went, that's so bad, in perfect unison. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. In a world where almost nothing brings people together, a terrible pun can. Boomers weren't trying to solve society's problems with their dad jokes, but maybe, accidentally, they were onto something. Maybe the key to keeping families and communities connected isn't perfect politics or shared ideologies. Maybe sometimes it's just a shared groan, a mutual eye roll, a pun so obvious it hurts. Let me hit you with a few more layers here, because we're not done. Dad jokes and intelligence. This one surprises people. There's research suggesting that people who enjoy and are good at puns tend to score higher on verbal intelligence and lateral thinking, the ability to hear, I'm on a seafood diet, I see food, I eat it, and not only understand the wordplay, but immediately construct a groan-worthy response. That actually requires a specific kind of cognitive flexibility. Boomers who excel at dad jokes are, in a weird way, demonstrating verbal agility. They're pattern-matching language, finding double meanings, setting up and delivering information in a precise sequence designed to maximize the delayed groan reaction. It looks effortless because they've had 50 years of practice, but it's actually a skill. A goofy, deeply uncool skill, but a skill nonetheless. Dad jokes and confidence. There's also something to be said about what it takes to commit to a dad joke in front of people. You have to be willing to look silly. You have to be okay with being the uncool one in the room, at least for a moment. You have to care more about the moment of connection than about protecting your image. That kind of social confidence, the willingness to be genuinely dorky in service of making someone smile, is actually pretty admirable. A lot of people spend their whole lives too scared to be uncool. Boomer dads just don't care. And in a way, that's one of the most freeing things about them. So let's bring this all home. Why do boomers love dad jokes? Because familiarity is love. When your dad tells you a pun, he's reaching back into his own childhood, pulling out something warm and safe and handing it to you. He's saying, "This made me feel connected once. I want it to make you feel connected too." Because low risk is wisdom. After a lifetime of navigating complex social situations, boomers have learned that sometimes the best move is the simple move. Not the cleverness everyone sees coming, but the simplicity nobody's prepared for. A good groan beats an awkward silence every single time, and because social bonding is everything, every eye roll your dad earns is a tiny deposit into the relationship bank. Every family groaning together at "I used to hate facial hair, but then it grew on me" is a family that's laughing together, and families that laugh together stay together. It's not complicated. It's actually ancient. It's wired into us. Dad jokes aren't the lowest form of humor. They might actually be the purest form of it. Stripped of everything, no target, no shock, no agenda, just two people, a terrible pun, and a mutual moment of acknowledging, "I see you. You're stuck with me. Let's laugh." Your dad didn't just tell you a bad joke. He was building something, brick by brick, pun by pun, a language only your family speaks, a collection of shared moments that don't need a photo album because they live in your groans. And someday, maybe sooner than you think, you're going to find yourself at a quiet moment with your own kids or your nieces and nephews or the next generation of whoever comes after you. And you're going to feel that irresistible pull, that urge, and you're going to say, "Did you hear about the guy who invented lifesavers? He made a mint." And they're going to groan hard, maybe throw something at you. And you're going to laugh that deep, self-satisfied laugh. And in that moment, you will finally understand your dad completely. If this video made you groan, smile, or call your dad, then it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Just like a good dad joke. And if you want more content that digs into the weird, wonderful, deeply human stuff hiding in everyday life, hit that subscribe button. Join the family. I promise I'll only use my powers for good, and occasionally for very low-risk puns. Drop your best, or worst, dad joke in the comments below. I want to see how bad we can really get. The groans, the grins, the ones that made you actually laugh even though you tried not to. Let's build something beautiful down there. If you learned something today, subscribe if you want to keep learning, and share this with someone whose dad is the king of terrible puns. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care, stay curious, and always watch out for the khaki shorts.